Hello, everybody. I'm Patricia Walls, and this is the Enlightened Path podcast. And today I happen to have with me my divine niece, Dina Faye Gilmore. And Dina Faye and I have known each other, she says, since before she was born, because I knew her mom and dad back when I was 16. I met her mother and father. And so, and then life happened and I didn't run into her again. We were just laughing about that. I ran into her again. How old were you?
Oh gosh, when I was doing radio, I would have been somewhere in my 30s, maybe late 30s.
Yeah. Okay. So I was doing a class at a healing center off Coit with that Chuck and Sonny Murphy ran or owned. And I was doing this class and this person walked through and I thought, I know you. How do I know you? And I recognized her right away. And I said, what is your name? And she said, Dina Faye Gilmore. And I thought, oh, Gilmore. Okay. Because she looks just like her mom and dad. I mean, you don't find that often, but you're the perfect blend of both of them. And I could have picked you out in a crowd, although I hadn't seen you since you were a little tiny thing, you know. But I was glad to reconnect, and I was so happy that to find that she was following a shamanic path, you know, a niece of my heart. And so who'd have thought, because her parents are bikers, and my first husband was a biker. That's how I met her parents. And here she is. Here both of us were at the time following the shamanic path. And so I was just so happy to reconnect with her. And so I want to tell you a little bit about her. I'm getting distracted here. So I'm so proud of Dina Faye because she is a filmmaker and a director. And she has, I'm trying to read because my memory's horrible. So she is an award-winning director and filmmaker for her directorial debut and drama effort, Baby in the Basement. I've heard so much about that. She's also an award-winning screenwriter for her original short script, The Day She Awakened, which is about your real life. And also an hour-long LGBTQ plus drama, original TV pilot, Chosen Family. And so I'm reading from her IBD, what is it called?
IMDb. It's the entertainment industry platform, basically, for all of us in the industry.
Yeah. I was blown away. I was trying to find a bio for her, and there she is on the big screen. I had a proud auntie moment there, you know. So she's also an award-winning photographer, and she's done some work with me, and we have some more things planned. And she's a 4-time best-selling author and professional mystic for 20 years plus. And like I said, does shamanic work and also offers readings, and she's a channel. So, I mean, she's just like this ball of everything, you know, a true multidimensional being of my heart. And I'm so excited that she agreed to come and talk to us and share some things. And so we were talking before I opened about, what are you going to share? And she's like, I don't know. What do you want me to share? And so, I mean, there's a whole menu to pick from. And so we're going to see what her menu contains today. What's the special of the day, Dina?
Oh, I would have to say how you can turn your traumas into triumphs.
Okay. All right. That works.
Because that's around everything pretty much that I do. So, you know, growing up a biker kid, if anybody's ever seen the show Sons of Anarchy, the only difference that makes it unrealistic is the kids are involved. They are not kept separate from that life, and they are pulled into that life. And I remember being a little bitty girl. I mean, I probably was like 3 or 4, and I think I said this out loud, and it was, I don't want any part of this life. I don't want this kind of life. I don't want this style. I mean, we were the everything house, drugs, guns, sex, you name it. Our house was the stopping point. And I think growing up around that, I got to see so many times how I didn't want to be. And, always knowing I was different and growing up in the South, because I'm a native Texan. And it was very challenging for me because I knew I was different, not just with gifts and abilities, but being gay. And so when I came out at 19, I was the quintessential homeless teen statistic because my family did not react well. And so I was given 3 options. And out of those options, I chose to be homeless because I was not going to go to a conversion therapy camp, which is extremely harmful. And I was not going to marry a man because that's what the Bible says. That's not what I remember about the book. I read the same book as everybody else. And, that book is about love and acceptance, and over 13,000 references against judgment. So for me, the way I like to live my life is I love everybody. I mean, I literally have love tattooed on my arm, but it faces me because in that point in my life, when I came out, I think I was just turned 19, somewhere right around in there. And it didn't go well. So for about 4 years, no interaction with the family. I was disinvited to all holidays, all functions, all gatherings, everything I'd known for 19 years of my life. And so I did try to take my own life when I was 22. Thank God I was not successful. This is where the higher power comes in. I knew exactly what I was doing and wrote a suicide note. Didn't tell anybody, including my roommate, who was my best friend at the time. And I overdosed on about 135 pills that should have killed a horse or an elephant. But I must have threw up enough where it made me wake up about almost 18 hours later. So I thought I was gone. But no, I woke up, and it was interesting because I fell asleep with a piece of rose quartz in my hand. I was just getting into crystals and tarot cards at that time. I was 22. Like I said, I woke up and that rose quartz crystal was still in my hand. And anyone who doesn't know about crystals or stones, rose quartz really is about self-love. So the moment that I woke up, I was dumbfounded, like, why am I physically here? So it took me quite a bit to get my mind sorted, but I made a pact that day that not only would I choose to work on myself and expand myself and grow, but I was also going to be of service to others. And it makes perfect sense because I've had many past life readings and I've always been to service of other people. And I love doing that because it's where I get to naturally give from my nature. So I say all this because no matter what your past is, your past doesn't make you who you are. If anything, you get to see where you don't want to be. So I always encourage, anytime I work with a client or I do a reading, I always say, look at your past as a reflection, not to go back and marinate in what was, what didn't work, all those things. I would have never become who I've become, who I am. But what's interesting, it led me into that life of, being a wounded soul. I did become an amazing healer, as far as like, everybody has their own interpretation of healer. Healer for me is I'm a vessel for your journey and what you need guidance or help or anything in nature. So I retired from 20 years of doing massage. My body was just done, and it said, lady, put us to rest. So I did. And now I just focus on my creative and my spiritual that I get to balance, which is where I really operate in my prime, is to be able to do that. So I say that because I did majority of my life living what my family said I would live, because I was trying to make up for being gay. I was trying to be apologetic. I was trying to not be who I am. And that was one way I was doing it. So I went back to college nearly 30 years later. And in that, I actually uncovered my childhood dreams. This is stuff I had suppressed, totally forgotten about. It was buried. I thought I was done. And it was to be a filmmaker and director, because when I was a little girl, I was probably, 6, 7, 8. And I started writing when I was 7. So I've been a writer my whole life. But in that, I used to set up these little fake cities. My mom worked in a factory and she brought home these metal buildings, and these metal cast off pieces from the machines look like buildings. And so I'd put those in the middle of the floor with my GI Joe men, who were the heroes, and then the army men, who were the enemies. My dad was in the army, so I have a history there that I had to deal with later in life. Nothing against the army whatsoever. Thank you for anybody who's in the military and does their service. And then Barbie was usually the one captive, because I was not a Barbie fan. I was not like my sister, didn't play with Barbies. So anyway, I had buried that I used to create movie sets, and I would take my writing and I would usually make like little movies. And so anyway, that unraveled everything for me and was truly a key for me to leave the world of massage. I was still doing everything my family told me to do. It's how I got into it. Into I'm believing in myself and I'm going for it. And, even classmates and colleagues, teachers, they were just like, you're a natural at this, you should be doing this. And so that's what led me into this. However, I can't give up my mediumship, my psychic abilities, my gifts, things like that. So now I just apply everything I do on a foundation of healing, meaning whoever watches it, whoever participates, whoever is involved in it, hopefully they find something for themselves, or maybe they'll unlock something. Because even with my short, is about teen suicide and homelessness. And I knew the moment that my mentor and teacher in screenwriting asked me, did I want that to make my first film? I knew after I read it, because it felt like it was me. That was me. And I knew I had to do that. And so that's really how I live my life, is I listen to my guides and my guardians. And so that's how I live my life. So anyone can be who they're destined to be if they just listen to what their heart says. So in their heart space, which is the color green, and to the guidance that they're always given. We're just so tapped out that we're not tuned in. And the more you tune in, the more you become who you're destined. Because we're like DNA and fingerprints, even identical twins. You can tell who's who, because we are meant to be different. That's why the moment that I stopped putting myself in a box, everybody wanted to box me in or contain me or tell me to pick a lane. No, you don't get to tell me that. I can do it all that really sings to my soul and wakens my heart.
So when you were talking about incorporating your healing into your screenwriting and your directing, that the beings were reminding me about something, because everything's a reminder, right? Because we already know all this stuff, but they were reminding me that when I write a book, right, it's magic. So when you write a book, you imbue it with frequencies and codes, right, that you want to share with people. The words are there, but there's a lot behind the words, right? The words aren't even important. I mean, how many times have you heard about people? There are people who can pick up a book and they can tell you exactly any page, any information in that book without ever cracking it, because they have that gift, right? They have the gift of reading the frequencies. I don't have that. Wish I had it.
Same.
But anyway, it's on my list. And so, the beings were reminding me, when you were talking about incorporating your healing abilities into your screenwriting and directing, they reminded me, of course, there are subliminals in movies and commercials. They're harmful subliminals, right? But there's also the possibility of putting positive subliminals in there. And that's what you've done.
Yeah.
In all of your work, you have incorporated positive subliminals, all of your film work, and all of your writings. Of course, the frequencies are there, but I had never considered that. So thank you very much.
Oh yeah, you're welcome. I think that's what we hear so much negative. I mean, like even the news is only reporting the negative. We are so programmed into being in chaos and conflict. And when I read for somebody, anytime that comes up, which is usually the number 5, through chaos and conflict, you actually get freedom. Because if you look at the number 5, it's really about going with the flow. because change is inevitable. And if you fight change, it makes that much harder for you in your life and who you want to become, because we have to stop comparing ourselves to one another. And I have to catch myself doing it too. Oh my gosh, I'm guilty of that too. Of, oh my gosh, this person, blah, 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 they're at cans and I should be doing this. I should, you can't shoulda, would yourself. So you just have to live for that. So prime example of what you said about the healing energies behind it is I did a TV pilot that I filmed. I personally backed because I couldn't find an investor at the time. And it's called Mystic Taxi. And it literally is a tarot deck that I had created for the TV show that is all about inspiration and empowerment. So whether you are a complete novice, you know nothing about tarot, or you're an expert and you've been reading for years, I wanted a deck that people could really resonate with and understand it. So how that is by doing this deck and the TV show, one, I wanted some merchandise with it. This whole project I downloaded during early of the pandemic. And so I was just really guided, and it was a testament to me to believe in myself to do this project. So I'm getting too long-winded on it. So let me shorten this a little bit.
No, you're not.
When I
We
did
have all the time in the world. Go ahead.
I love it. When I did this project, what people don't see behind the scenes is from the get-go, moment one, I started writing in. Every time I do a new project, I do what my mentor and teacher does, and I create a little composition book for the project. So Mystic Taxi started out as on paper. And that project, it's all about a platform of inspiration and empowerment through whoever is reading, whether it's myself or another mystic. So the TV pilot's about 34 minutes and 35 seconds. And it was myself as a reader. And then another friend of mine, I saw her perform, and I just went up to her and I knew that she had to be in this project. So we did do that. But what you don't see is I wanted to create where no matter what reading you're receiving, you're going to be in movement. So we're going to do it in a car. Okay. Now let me one up that a little bit. So not just a car, not just any car. Let me get a Sprinter van limo. So now let me put you in luxury. So I'm creating for any reading you're going to get, you're going to be automatically moving forward, because the vehicle, we never had to back up, thankfully. Maybe once while we were filming, but that's it. And then and then you're in a luxury limo. So now we're bringing in abundance and prosperity. So that was my idea of a boring, airport trip. It doesn't need to be boring. You can have a reading while you're on the way to the airport, or you're going shopping with your girlfriends, or you want a bachelorette party, those kind of things. So it is a big picture project of, I would love to see this become reality. So instead of calling just an Uber, you can call Mystic Taxi, and they can take you for your ride. But in doing this, we had the most fun, and I knew I wanted multiple psychics. And the only reason I put myself in front of the camera, which I'm telling myself, makes me completely nervous. So the opening of Mystic Taxi, I actually really don't like, because you can tell that I'm nervous. The sun was in my eyes. I was actually freezing because we did it in Colorado, and I didn't pack because it said it was not going to snow. But they had a snowstorm, not during filming, but while I was there. And so I was freezing. And so I don't like the opening because I don't feel like I was myself. However, it was a pilot. So it's a pilot you shoot for a proof of concept that we've been pitching to networks and seeing if we'll get chosen. So I'm still doing that. But the whole point behind it was, how can we guide you? What questions do you have? What is, the journey that you're never going to forget, because you're in a moving, luxurious vehicle. With not only myself, and Erica was the other gal who did it. We were the mystics, to be of service to the people that were coming for a ride. And I hand selected people that I did know, but I didn't know anything about their spiritual journeys or spiritual paths. So the actress that was in my short, Baby in the Basement, was the person I read for, because we'd never spoken about spirituality, didn't know nothing about her journeys in that realm or that world. And didn't even know if she had had a question in the beginning, because that's how I read. I don't want to know what your question is, because I'll get more information. But the only reason I put myself in front of the camera is because two producers that I was pitching this project to both said the exact same words. Why are you not in front of the camera? Why are you not one of the mystics reading? And I went, because I don't want to be seen. I like being behind the camera and I'm directing it. And they're like, yeah, but you also did that on your short film too, didn't you? And I went, well, I wasn't in front of the camera, but yes, I was multi hats kind of thing. And they're like, well, there's a difference between when you do too much versus when you need to be in front of the camera. And I'm like, okay, so I considered it, said no, considered it some more, talked to another producer who said the same thing. So now I got 3 producers who said, why aren't you one of the Mystics reading? And I went, fine. And, that was universe speaking to me through other people, because sometimes I debate it too. So anyway, that's what we did on that project. And so I do have that privately listed on YouTube, that I've been sending either on YouTube or Vimeo for producers and production companies. So we've been close many, many, many times. But yeah, we're still available.
So a person can't just go watch Mystic Taxi.
No,
Okay.
not yet. But I'm creating.
Sounds so interesting. Yeah.
We had a lot of fun. I did the whole thing. I had it catered for the production crew. We were able to do a couple of takes and we just had a lot of fun. And I picked Erica because she's a wildly gifted psychic mystic as well. And she's just a lot of fun and she's very energetic. And she had improv training, because here's the thing that I wanted about this show is one of the people we did have an interest in, they wanted to buy it from me and kind of turn it into some drama TV. And I went, no. This is my baby that I downloaded in the pandemic. It's got to go a certain way because of the whole healing aspect and the foundation that I created it on, for the people who are actually going to be watching it and maybe even participate. I did it on multi-levels. So everybody who's filming it, to everybody who's in front of the camera, to the people we're reading for, to the people that will watch. I mean, there's a whole thing that I built as a foundation on it, but not put in a box, that I would love to see it as a franchise, so you'll have Mystic Taxi Dallas, Mystic Taxi San Francisco, Mystic Taxi New York. I want those things where we could also do it as a traveling road show. And it's funny because out of that project was also born another project that I had a vision of 20 years ago when I started studying shamanism. This was one of my earliest journeys I ever had. And it was about filming people doing a shamanic journey in like a movie theater kind of setting. And there was more to it that I didn't understand at the time. Before I fast forward many years later, and I'm a filmmaker, and I think the time had to be right because it was me who was going to film it, or at least hire a production crew. So I'm not going to direct, star, and be the filmmaker again, like I did for my first one. So that was too much. And so with that being said, we do have this new event coming that's called Southern Fried Psychics. It's me, your dearly, my Aunt Patricia over here, who the 2 of us and several others are going to be on a panel for an audience. The venue's been booked. It's been paid. We're ready to go. It'll be in Plano, Texas, September 30th, 2023. So we got about 4.5 months left. Or not quite, but and it's going to be a night of fun of delivering messages. So the whole reason I wanted to do this is the vision I had years ago was when we collaborate, when we get together as mystics and psychics and people who use their abilities to be of service, when you gather us together and that's all our intention, our gifts grow tenfold, or even our abilities, because gifts is something you're born with, and then abilities are what you've trained. So I'm sure, like you, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars and hours on cultivating and exercising my abilities, my muscles, things that you will to be of service for others. Excuse me. And so this project is 20 years in the making, but I usually say about 18 years in the making, because that's when I started recording it and writing it down. Sorry, I got to take a drink. When I talk, I start to cough. And so I'm excited for this event and us to come together, because when we gather and we get to collaborate, our gifts do grow, but it's all about people and their perception of what they think a mystic and psychic is. Sometimes they get shot down. Like prime example of Teresa Caputo, she has so many people who say, oh, she's fake, oh, she's this, oh, she's that. Well, so if you put 7 of us together, are you seriously going to sit there and say all 7 of us are fake? when we're kind of tapping into those same channels and information to be of service of others. Like, why would you attack a mystic and psychic who's given up their time and energy to be of service to another person? I just don't understand why people would do that. So in the point of doing that, we come together. I want to be able to debunk that possibility of all that attention is so much stress and tension on one psychic. Now there's several of us and we're there to support one another, but we're there to support the audience. So we created this experience that it's about the audience and what they need and how we can be of service best to them and their questions, their guidance, loved ones that have crossed over that they want to connect with, animals that have crossed over that they want to connect with, those type of things. So I'm really excited for this event because I've had this vision for so long.
I think that people are generally more open now to psychic phenomenon than they were 20 years ago. You know?
Totally.
I mean, they were really quick to call people a fake and a fraud back then. And people are having their own experiences now, you know, which debunk that altogether. And it's a different frequency now than it was then. I don't see it. I mean, I have had people when I'm doing readings, you have the odd person every once in a while who comes to test you, you know, and debunk it. And they usually are the ones that get the biggest message, you know, that they can't deny, because as I love to say, God has a great sense of humor, you know. And I mean, there are lots of even religious groups who are not, they don't call themselves psychics, they call themselves seers, or there's another word that they use. What is it? Not mystics. Oh, I can't think of it, but you know, having psychic information, psychic awareness, seeing, hearing, smelling, knowing has been in the world forever. I mean, it's been used forever. But the fear comes from the fallen programs, you know, the fallen programs that were meant to keep us all in our little box where we belonged. And we're kicking the doors down on those boxes. We're kicking down the walls. And so it's not really an issue anymore. But you're also when we had not the last one, was it the first one?
Or
the light language immersion weekend. You were there and you filmed a lot of it. And at some point you're going to do something with that feed. And so what are your plans for that?
My original plan was a documentary. However, I think it at least this is where I'm kind of guiding to go toward with it, is documentaries follow like this very, I don't want to say strict because that's not the word I'm looking for, but linear, like template, if you will. And I've gotten really clear, especially with light language, there's really not a template. That's why I don't like scripted for my shows that I created for Mystic Taxi, because it's more fun if you don't script a psychic. You don't know what's going to come out their mouth. And so I like them to just be them, ultimately exactly as they are, unfiltered, come who you are and who you want to portray out in the world. Because that really unleashes their own abilities where they don't have to fit in a box. So that's the only reason why I'm veering away a little bit from documentary into an independent film about discovering and unlocking the mysteries of light language. And I've come up with a couple of different things about titles, things like that, but I really want to get more footage than I know what to do with and create an indie film about this, because it's about awareness.
So let me point out,
Yes.
you see me got this smirk on my face. So let me point out, you said, I want to unlock the mysteries of light language.
Ah.
That's the title of this book that I'm writing right now. Unlocking the mysteries of light language.
You can't make this stuff up, folks. I'm telling you. Oh my God.
That
Wow.
is hilarious. Yeah, that's the name of this book.
Oh my God.
Unlocking the mysteries of light language.
Okay. Well, and that's not even in my notes about the filming because you know, I've kind of dumped it and it's on a hard drive, but I want to travel and go and interview all these different people that do light language in their
Right.
own, you know, kind of thing. So, but that will take some money. And so yeah, that's my plan with it is I would love to be able to have on camera as many people that would like to be involved to do that. So I just went to the Hay House I Can Do It conference in Tampa, Florida.
Right.
And I knew before I was going, this is part of how I listen, is I'm going to meet significant women there that play a part in my projects going forward. I'm like, okay. And then it was possible I might meet somebody in a romantic level. And I'm like, okay, I dismissed that a little bit. But then I was just listening. And so every time that I would get in my own like anxious, I gotta go get a seat. I don't want to be sitting in the back row. I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta yada. I would make myself sit there and listen to that person I was connecting with and listening because I knew there was a morsel or a tidbit or something I needed to hear, see, whatever. And so it was really awesome because in one of the people I met out of God, probably 24, she either owns or is opening or has a healing center in oh, I knew I was going to forget the state. It's not Massachusetts. I forgot where she said she was. Anyway, we exchange information. She does light language. And when I was talking about this, her friend that came with her kept looking at her like, is this really happening? Is this really happening? Because she's talking about having a gallery. And when I told her I was a filmmaker and I'm filming about light language, things like that, she's like, we're going to have to talk and you're going to have to come out. So that may be another project you and I can do together, because you would just love her. But her name was Carolyn and her friend was Tammy. And I just knew that I'm like, my gosh, I'm so glad I listened to what I was being told before I left to go, because normal me, when I'm not in my filmmaker mode, you know, getting nervous or anxious, you know, meeting new people. I'm actually shy. People never know that because I'm an introvert who's learned how to be extrovert, because there's always that little girl in me. Oh, gotta be small. I gotta not be seen, not be heard. And all that is my programming from being a kid, you know, a biker child. I can't tell you how many times be like, go away, or, you know, go play or go outside or go do this or go do that, where, you know, the adults wanted to do their thing. So that's just my old childhood programming that you got to be like, no, I have a purpose. And no, I know I'm supposed to meet people. And I was told, and, you know, so that will win out 99.9% of the time,
Right.
getting divine information before I'm doing something.
There are some amazing people popping out. And I think it's so interesting. This is episode 6. Okay. I want to say episode 4 of 6 episodes we've all circled around to basically the same topics, right?
Of course.
And I mean, in one way or another, they've all hit on these same topics. And these are people that don't play in the same sandbox together. So there's no way, right? But I am running into so many people now. And if you go to the internet and you put in light language, oh my God. Used to be, if you go into the internet, Google, and you put in light language, you might get maybe four hits, okay, on individuals who were publicly doing light language. Now you may get 20 on a good day, you know, but there are so many people teaching light language, transmitting light language. They have websites, they have books, they have YouTubes, They have courses. I
TikTok.
mean, it's the new thing, basically. But, you know, at one point, Reiki was the new thing.
Right. Right.
And I hate to diminish it like that, but it's true. You know, light language is the new ticket.
Yeah.
But
Not
and so
diminishing.
there are those people like Dorian Light and Judy Satori that I reference every time I talk to somebody about light language, because I call them the grandmothers of light language, because they were on stage with thousands of people transmitting and teaching light language 20 years ago. You know, when everybody was going, oh, they're just talking gibberish, you know, but they had 1,000 people pay to come hear them talk that gibberish. And they still do. They still have thousands of people paying to come hear them speak gibberish. And so in your considerations, you will love Dorian Light and Judy Satori.
I have no
I
doubt.
don't know about Judy so much, but here's a for instance, okay? Dorian is a friend on Facebook for me. I've never met her. She doesn't know me from anybody. I doubt that she's ever taken the time, because she has 1 million followers, right? I sincerely doubt that she's ever had the time to look and see what I do. So she probably doesn't even know that I do light language, right? Or how much of an effect she's had on my life. But if I comment on one of her posts, she will reply. Okay. And so that's the caliber of this woman, that everybody is important to her. I feel like if you contacted her, she would definitely be excited about being a part of anything dealing with light language. I don't know so much about Judy. I haven't had those interactions with her, but Dorian, she is just so reachable, you know, so personable.
Well, and doing that work, you have to be like tapping in consistently, you know, because you know that you're ultimately guided and being given who to connect with, where to go, what to do, those kind of things. And,
right.
You know, self-included, it really is all about you. Like some people say, well, that's being selfish. Well, it depends on how you look at it. Because for me, it's not coming from a place of selfishness. It's coming from a place of, we gave you abilities. We gave you gifts that you've turned into abilities. Let me be more clear about that. So how do you want to use that? So when I did try to take my own life, I was awakened, maybe it's awakened, because I had a bigger purpose I didn't see at that time. So my whole unproduced short script about the day she awakened was my story about the day that I woke up from my suicide attempt. So, and I've changed it over the years. So now the ending is not truly what happened. It has more of a twist on the end, because that's the world of screenwriting. Is people were saying it needs to be a little more interesting. So I did. And I actually really love the ending now, even though that's not really what happened. But it was my family, and it was my life, and it was what it was like that day for me. And so anyway, it really is about what do you want to be in the world, and what contribution do you want to do, kind of thing. And that's how I do everything. So when I went to Sedona, this was back in, I think it was April, I went with some soul sisters from Colorado, because I lived in Colorado for 10 years. And we rented this Airbnb, and I was guided. I cannot explain it other than how I've kind of explained it before. Is I was guided. I look at things, and it's the energy that I feel. And I was told when I was looking at the houses, it has to be this house. Keep fighting for this house, because my gal pals were like, no, it's too expensive, and I don't want to pay that kind of money because I have this kind of budget. And I said, look, we're going to do a couple things here. It's on my life list. I've always wanted to rent a nice luxury house and have the master bedroom, because I'd never been able to do that before in my life. So let me just splurge on myself once in a while, you know, kind of thing. And so we did. Well, so divine that it was this house, because this house was in the valley of Bell Rock. And I always get these two confused, Cathedral Rock, and then there's one more. So it wasn't Cathedral.
There's courthouse. There's the courthouse, and
no,
Cathedral, Bell Rock, courthouse, and there's Airport Mesa.
not that one. I want to say it's like
Um,
Bayan, something like that.
yeah, yeah, Boyden, Boy.
I think so. They're close to one another. So anybody that knows Sedona knows it's the one that's pretty close to Bell Rock. And
It's
that
the
was
one you have to walk the furthest too.
oh, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we drove and walked to them, but it was our direct view. So on the balcony of the master bedroom that I chose that I wanted to be in was the balcony that looked directly onto Bell Rock and the one that's right next to it. And we were just chatting with one another. We all brought our own tarot cards. So of course we pull and oracle cards and we're doing cards. And then I get this message all of a sudden of come to the balcony, come to the balcony. I was being beckoned. And so I'm like, well, do I come alone or do I come with my sisters? And they're like, all come to the balcony. I'm like, okay. So I shared with them and we all love each other and they know that I'm out there sometimes. And I'm like, we're being summoned to go to the balcony. So when we did, one of the things while we were there, we only had 2 days. We did all this in 2 days. We go to
That's
the balcony.
crazy.
I know. And I wanted to do, we all did, wanted to do like the nighttime UFO tour thing that they do. Because one of the locals recommended it. And so we didn't need it. We went to this balcony and we had all this celestial activity is what I like to call it, in the sky. So UFOs, were all like almost putting a show on for us. It was so many and beautiful and wonderful. And well, then I became a vessel. And then that's what they literally told me is you're the vessel. So I know with any project that I'm doing, I'm just to help create it in filmmaking form to deliver it to the world. And maybe podcast. I've thought about getting back to podcasting. So the fact that we're doing this, I might get back into my podcasting. So because we talked about doing Southern Fried Psychic podcast. I do have a YouTube channel that I've not done anything with it, about expanding the awareness out in the world and really being of a bigger service, not just a lane. So it's like taking all the blinders off and just being all out there. It's time for me to be seen, is what I was told.
Yeah.
And that's hard for me, very hard for me.
We can work on that.
That would probably be a good thing because that's what I usually struggle with the most. Because I do, I did go through domestic violence in 2016, 2017. And when I did, it did leave me. So women do hurt women, contrary to belief. Raging alcoholic is no fun to be with. And what I learned out of that and what I got out of that was my self-worth and knowing who I am and what I'm meant to be. And that I'm human right now. And I made a biggest mistake of my life. But out of that was really like, okay, now it's now or never. You really must take all your bag of tricks, take all your shamanism you learned, take all your mystic work you've done, take everything you've known, and now go to work. And so I did. And I reached out to, oh my gosh, some of the most gifted people I know with their abilities, coaches, therapists. I did all those things so I could get back to the better version of me,
Right.
because I need to continue being of service. And so it was really a full circle moment for me of, channeling and them telling me you're the vessel. I wouldn't be the vessel had I not done the work, because you got to do the work if you want to be a better version of yourself. So what is it that you want to work on? And pick something, start with one thing and go to work on it. So like I said, no two people are the same. Don't compare yourself, but what do you want to go to work on? How you want to live your life? Who do you want to be in the world?
Right. And can I point out that there are no mistakes, there are only experiences. And we have signed up for all of them. So that was an important experience for you that got you here.
True.
You didn't make a mistake.
Well, my ego programming calls it a mistake. So you're
Yeah.
right. And thanks
Yeah.
for catching that, because
There are no mistakes.
that even provides some freedom there. So
Yeah. So what advice would you give someone who, I have so many people who will, how am I going to say this in a nice way? Because I don't have judgments.
Mhm.
I really don't have judgments. I have awarenesses.
Mhm.
And so I mean, things exist and you don't have to judge them, but you do have to be aware of them. And so I have a lot of people who will make assumptions about me, about my beingness, right? And they will ask me, how can I learn shamanism? You know, how can I want to be a medicine woman? How can I do that? And my first answer to that's not always the best. You know, it's not always the crispest when I say it, but my one of my Lakota grandmothers told me one time, you're a medicine woman when you can grow herbs out of your vagina. Okay.
Oh, well, there you go.
That's what a medicine woman is. When you can grow plants out of your body, then you're a medicine woman. Okay. But so sometimes that comes out of my mouth before I can catch it with my Aries nature. Okay. And I don't mean for it to be harmful to anybody, but that made sense to me when she said it. But I call her a medicine woman. I do. And I've never known her to be able to grow plants out of her vagina, but you know, I still call her a medicine woman because she's an amazing native healer. But people ask me a lot, how can I learn shamanism? And I honestly stumble around to give them an answer because, yes, I took some shamanism classes, but they were, do you call it neo-shamanism?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
mine was core shamanism.
Yeah. And so the classes that I took were, I'm not going to mention, they're telling me not to mention it.
Yeah.
They're saying, cut it.
They always do this to me. They purse my lips and
cut it. Don't mention it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it, they said. But anyway, there are shaman classes out there, Sandra Ingerman, you know, and there are a lot of shaman classes out there. All that to say, what advice would you give someone, because you are open about following a shamanic path? I am not. My path is more, I call it earth medicine, not shamanism, for a reason. So what advice would you give someone who wants to learn more about shamanism?
And no two paths are the same for anyone. So what I usually tell people is, if this subject interests you or you want to know more, start simply by, how I got started. I went to a book club. You know, I love to read and I love to absorb. So I'm dyslexic and ADD. So even as a child, they used to call me retarded, and they would tell mom, your child is special. She's retarded and she's going to be in reading classes for the rest of her life, which I was. But you know, I really debunked that. Even as a kid, I'm like, I'm not a retarded, which now they say a special needs, or,
Autistic. They want to label people autistic now, which is a fallen program. But yeah.
In the 70s, they didn't know what that was. And
right.
I don't believe I'm on the spectrum. At least I've never been diagnosed with it. But I try to tell people, no matter what your label or diagnosis is, don't accept it. Don't own it. Don't stand in the power of it. Okay, fine. That's a word somebody said. So that's just my belief with it. But when it comes to shamanism, similar to the rest of the way I believe is, if you boil it down, it's not a religion. It's a way of being. So a way of being for me is to love everyone and to respect and love everything, because everything on the planet has energy. So prime example, people who are attacking and wanting to kill LGBTQ people right now, or trans, things like that is their programming. And it takes everything I have not to want to hate those people, but that is fueling how they're being already. So it would be a disservice if I do that. What would be of service if I just keep sharing the love, share the love, share the love, share the love, knowing that maybe that's what they signed up for. Maybe that's their purpose. So in wanting to learn shamanism, I picked up a book. And from that book, now there's two different things I want to be distinct about this, is there's people who think, oh, I read a book, I'm a shaman. No, that's not the way it goes. You're not a read a book shaman. How it usually is distinctive is this is through the Native American cultures, which I do have Cherokee and Creek. And so shamanism allowed me to connect with our Native American heritage, specifically Cherokee. For some reason, that's the one I resonate with the most. And I don't have enough that I think I'm a 16th where I could be a registered Cherokee, which is fine because I don't need a card. I don't need a piece of paper to really connect with the internal of my heritage. But I also have Scottish and Irish, which is where Gilmore came from. So I love that we are basically a mixture of different cultures. So in the world of shamanism, pick what you resonate with. So like yours is neo and mine's core. The difference between what core is core taught us to be as pure as possible, meaning I don't need a substance, I don't need marijuana, I don't need ayahuasca, I don't need any of those things to get into a trance or to channel or to be the healer that I was obviously put on this earth to be in this lifetime, many lifetimes apparently. So you find out what's going to work for you. So prime example, in our first 4 years, I did 5 years of studying. Our first 4 years, we couldn't even have caffeine. You were to be as pure as possible, unless when you did a journey, my teachers, I had 4 different teachers. You would take a piece of dark chocolate because it's grounding, it's of the earth, but dark chocolate is of the most pure form. And so we would take a piece. And so that does have a little bit of caffeine in it sometimes, unless they got the pure organic that had none in it. And so we were very strict, like in our training, but I'm glad because of my history with growing up in the bikers and all that stuff, is we were the everything house, and everybody's like, oh, you're probably going to grow up a druggie. No, I won't, kind of thing. So shamanism really saved me from having to fit in a religious box, because it's not a religion. It is a way of being that my ancestors did. And so my advice would be find a book first, or find a teacher or a group where you can go to, and you can do all this online now. You don't even have to go in person if people have gotten so accustomed to Zoom, or they would just not to be like in person. I do recommend it in person, only because of the exercises and what you'll get out of it is, I've done both, and I do recommend in person because it is all about community and you're sharing that energy. And there's just something about a circle, when you create a sacred circle, that I have found it more gratifying in person. Now I've found it gratifying also on Zoom. It's just the circle is created by intention. So long answer, sorry, that's so long-winded. The advice really is find somebody maybe you want to emulate. If you've heard somebody speak, or you've check out YouTube and search shamanism, you'll find a ton of stuff out there. Same with podcasts. There's a ton of podcasts out there as well. And start listening to them and find out what really works for you, because let's see, I don't remember the name of it, but there is a form of shamanism that they do ayahuasca and then they go into trance and do their work. That one just didn't resonate for me because it was just me. If that's something you want to resonate with, then I highly recommend go to somewhere where it's about honoring the plant overall, meaning like Peru, because it's the medicine of the plant. It's the growing of the plant. You have to learn the history. You have to learn from these trained professionals who grew up pretty much their whole life, where the people where it's like trendy to do it and then do a journey or kind of thing. I do not support that type of work. I do not, because you don't know what you're getting yourself into, and it can unleash some stuff that you're not willing or need to bring home with you. So it's kind of like Pandora's box. You don't want to unlock something if you're not fully prepared. And that's why I usually recommend people to train underneath a shaman or a shamanic practitioner. And I want to say that about that too, is I usually define myself as a shamanic practitioner and not an actual shaman, because that is out of respect for the indigenous. The indigenous are shamans. They're chosen by their community and their village. So out of respect for my teachers and who I learned from, I would love to just be clear about that.
So you do know, and we've had this conversation, shamanism is not Native American.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I just want to point that out. Shamanism is not Native American.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a shaman in pretty much every corner and culture of the world. For me,
They just have different names. Yeah.
For me,
So they are the holy people. They are the medicine people. They are the shaman. They are the,
wise
the
woman,
seer, the
wise
mystic.
man.
It depends on what culture it is.
Yeah.
But the whole planet is indigenous. I mean, we weren't always civilized. And so, I mean, like, the Celtic traditions, of their version of shamanism, versus, the Asian version of shamanism, but there's a lot out there to learn. There really is. If people will just begin by learning about the elements, basically, giving respect to the elements and to the animal world, and just realizing that everything is alive. Everything is alive. And as a past life regression facilitator, my biggest lesson is we've been everything. We've been everything from a grain of sand to an entire planet to just energy. And so just having respect for all life is important.
Yeah.
And, practicing in that way is true.
And I'm glad you said that, because the way I was saying it was kind of associating or attaching to Native American. So I'm glad you clear that up, because for me, that was just an access point to my heritage.
And for me, I mean, my first books that I was drawn to was Mary Summer Rain, where she talked about no eyes, right? And that was my introduction into Native American. And from there, I met a group. So this is what happened. I can tell you this part. And so because of her book talked about a Shida bundle. Her book talked about a medicine pouch that one should wear. And they called it a Shida bundle. And so I went into Tandy Leather. I mean, where, back 40 years ago, where do you buy leather, So I went into Tandy Leather, and there was a guy there, long black hair, very, hippie-ish. And he, made a beeline for me, and he said, he worked there. And so he said, how can I help you? And I said, well, I'm just looking for a piece of, small piece of leather. And I didn't tell him what I wanted to do with it. I said, just a small piece of leather. And he said, oh, you're making a Shida bundle. And I went, okay, he's listening, And I went, yeah, that's what I'm doing, So he sold me a small piece of leather. And he said, are you studying with anybody right now? And I went, no, I'm just, just kind of dealing with it on my own. And he said, well, there's this group, and they have classes, and, they hold circles, and here, he gave me a name. And so, I connected up with that group who were in Richardson at the time, and started going to their classes and doing, participating in their circles and their ceremonies. And somewhere along the way, someone asked me, she said she'd had a dream, and in the dream she had been given this name, and the name sounded Native American. And she wanted to know if I knew what this name meant. Okay. And so I was talking with meanwhile I had met a Cherokee brother he's passed on now into spirit, but he taught language. He taught, people. He was Cherokee, and he taught people. He had classes on learning the Cherokee language, and I had taken his class. And so I called him and said, his name was Frank McLemore. And I said, Frank, does this word mean anything to you? He's like, no, that don't sound like Cherokee to me. And he said, it may be Apache. It may be Apache. He said, I have an Apache brother. Of course you do, right? So he said, I have an Apache brother, and you need to call him. And so I called the Apache brother, and so we met for lunch, because it turned out our buildings were close. We were downtown Dallas. And so we met for lunch, and he's like, yeah, it may be this, it's a little off, but it may be this. And so I met him. And so I shifted from that group that I was working with in considered shamanism to doing traditional Native American, and I did that for a really, really long time. And that's why I make the comparison. Shamanism is not Native American. Trust me, there is a huge swing difference, in the way those two work. But I forget why I told you that. But anyway, yeah, it's I have people ask me sometimes, how do I learn Native American? I want to go work. I want to go learn with an Indian, and I'm not being critical. I'm just sharing a story.
Yeah.
But there is no go learn with an Indian.
Not really. No,
There's not.
Unless you have connections to like a Indian reservation. But usually you have to be invited on, and it depends on the reservation. Not many will
even that, sister. Okay. Even that. And it's okay to say this, I Sundanced for 13 years with the Lakota, and there are no classes. Okay. There are no classes. It's participatory.
Yeah.
You learn by participating. And so when people ask me, can I take classes? The truthful answer is no. There are no classes to learn how to be Indian. There's no classes to learn how to walk the Indian path. I mean, there are classes in shamanism, but to walk an Indian path, you either have to be Indian, and even so, just because you're Indian doesn't mean that your family practices the old ways,
right.
And so anyway, we got off on that. We got off on that dock way out there in the river. Somehow.
It happens.
Because we're us.
Yep. We could talk about anything and everything all day long.
Yeah. So I am so happy that you did join us. Let me get back to this. Let me get back to you. So I'm so happy that you joined us. I am so excited for what you're doing in the community. I'm looking forward to Southern Fried Psychics. And I'm looking forward to whatever it is that you're creating about light language, because we're not going to call it a documentary. So I look forward to whatever that evolves and morphs into. And if I can help you make some connections for people that you might want to interview. And honestly, I don't know why they couldn't pay your way there. Why do you have to come up with the money to travel?
That's a good point I hadn't thought of. Well, it goes back to my programming from my very first film. It was extremely low budget. We did it for just a hair under $5,000, which is very low budget for a film, and did almost a lot of the work myself and my fellow college students, because I was a full-time college student when I did that. So my programming goes, oh, I got to do it myself because no one's out there to support it. It's the programming is all that
Yeah.
is. That's me
Yeah.
being a human right now, instead of expanding. But my biggest lesson in this life is receiving. And so I work really diligently on that, to be able to receive. So thanks for that information, because that opens a lot more of unlocking the mysteries of light language.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
what's funny, I'm so glad you said that, because I got a download probably a few weeks ago, so I haven't been able to tell you this yet, is the film will be pretty much based on the words from the book. But I wasn't sure, because I loved Galactic Frequencies of Light, but it wasn't the right fit. So it might be the one you're writing. So
It's moving really quickly. I'm at 130 something pages,
wow.
8 by 10, and by the time they shrink it to 6 by 9, it's probably a good 200. But yeah, it's moving very quickly.
I request please let me
I
read that as soon as possible.
yeah, I hope to be able to finish it by my target is July, to be able to publish it by July. That's my target. So we'll see if that works out.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of self-publishing too.
Uh-huh.
It is a lot faster. It can cost you a lot more, but you know, even with
It doesn't cost anything to publish through Amazon.
like $0.
$0. You
Okay.
and I might want to have a conversation about
Yeah.
something that happened in the past for us.
Oh yeah.
But it costs you $0 to publish through Amazon. 0.
Okay.
You upload the book, you tell them how much you want to sell it for.
Mhm.
When they sell it, they send you your whatever you call that, royalties.
Mhm.
If you buy copies that you want to sell in person, you pay for the printing and the shipping.
Mm.
That's it.
Okay. Well, you might want to
Oh,
bring
yeah, you and I, yeah, we need to have a conversation about that other deal that we bought into.
Yeah.
Anyways,
And you might want to bring some of your signed books to the Southern Fried Psychics event too.
of
So
course.
yeah, that's a somebody talking to me right there.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
mhm.
This is my 7th book, so
Yeah, you're ahead of me.
it's too much to haul around, so we'll have to pick and choose.
Yeah, I get it. Yep.
Well, I love you very much, Dina
Aw,
Faye,
yeah,
and give your mom a hug for me,
I will.
and I shall talk to you very soon. So thank all of you for joining us on this crazy, wacky episode of the Enlightened Path, where we truly were multidimensional beings and went off into all kinds of directions, being the masters of chaos that we are.
And an ADD brain, I want to say that is not a curse. It's actually a gift that you'll learn later in life. It is truly a gift.
Yeah, being multidimensional is fun for me.
Same. It wasn't as a kid growing up, but it is as an adult in my 50s.
Now I can use it as a play tool. Yeah, to
Mhm.
confuse others.
My favorite one is if you're ever in an elevator and somebody talks to you and it's not somebody you want to talk to or whatever, you'd be like, oh, you can see me? It's one of the best jokes I ever heard, but I did that once and I thought the person was just going to fall out.
Did you really do it? I've always wanted to do it. Yeah.
I can't believe I said it. I was not going to say it. And then I was like, I have to. I want to. It's my playful, like little fairy side coming out. And I don't think they could get out of the elevator fast enough.
I would have loved to have seen that.
Mm-hmm. I wished I would have had a hidden camera. I never thought I was going to do it. And it was so.
But see, I would have to add, I was simply bilocating. How are you seeing?
Am I human again? What
I
happened?
must have done something wrong. I was just trying to bilocate.
Oh, dang. They sent me back to Earth. Crap. Oh, my God.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. So I'm going to close this. Don't get out, Dina Faye.
Okay.
So thank you thank you so much for joining the Enlightened Path podcast episode 6. And I hope to see you all later. Please follow the podcast so that you'll get notices of the next upload, and also consider becoming a patron because it helps support me in doing this work. Thank you very much. And I'm going to close it. I think I'm going to close it. It doesn't want me to stop recording, Dina. What's up?
Yeah, because I don't
I
see
like that.
recording.
The beans don't want me to stop recording.
I love it. Well, that means